Hi, I'm James, a knee, foot and ankle specialist. I've been providing advice to patients for over 10 years on footwear, and in this video we're going to give you a breakdown of the most maximalist cushion shoes on the market. We try to keep our reviews as short and concise as possible so you can get as much benefit from it without extra waffling. The first thing that we're going to talk about with these three shoes is the stack height, so that's the amount of cushioning in the shoe, and the heel drop and the weight. So in the first shoe, the New Balance 1080 V13, you've got 38mm in the rear foot and 32mm in the forefoot, giving you a 6mm drop. Comes in about 262 grams in a men's 9 US. Then in the Cloudmonster, you got a little bit less stack height. You got 35mm on the rear foot, 29 on the forefoot, another 6mm drop, coming in slightly heavier at 295 grams in the same size. And then you've got a maximalist cushion shoe in the Brooks Ghost Max 2. It's got 39mm in the rear foot, 33mm in the forefoot, the 6mm drop as well, same as the other two shoes, and the heaviest of all coming in at 309 grams in the men's 9 US. Then in terms of the cushioning, this is where all three shoes differ. Whilst they're all maximum cushion shoes, they'll feel different on the foot, and I'm going to talk about how it feels on standing, walking and running. So first of all, we'll talk about the New Balance 1080 V13. It's got possibly the most compliant cushioning on the market. And what we mean by that is that it's super soft. It's like a sponge or walking on a cloud. As soon as you apply pressure to it, you sink into it. Because it's got a really high stack, it can make the shoe a little bit unstable. So what you get is the benefits of nice, soft, comfortable. If you've no history of issues with ankle tendon problems, then a perfect shoe for you if you're looking for something super soft. In contrast to that, you got a really firm and rigid sole in the Cloudmonster 2. So they've got the Hawaiian cushioning with a new dual density midsole, and they've got their TPU plate in the shoe, which makes it extra stiff, so you can see it's really hard to bend the shoe, in contrast to say like the New Balance, which is nice and flexible, and then in the Brooks, really flexible in the toe box. So what you get is a really responsive ride. So if you're looking for an up-tempo runner that's maximally cushioned, then this is an excellent shoe for you. We found that on slower runs it's a little bit clunky, a little bit harder to transition from the heel to the forefoot when you're trying to push through. It does have that late rocker that you really feel on the faster sessions, but struggle to get there on slower runs. So overall, super firm, a little bit better for up-tempo work, whereas the New Balance, as it's super soft, probably something that we generally don't recommend to patients for runs, but more for as a walking shoe. And then you've got something in between in the Ghost Max 2. So it's not as firm as the Cloudmonster 2, but it does have plenty of responsive cushioning in there. So we really enjoyed it for them slow, longer runs. Excellent shoe that you can just slip on straight away for longer walks, and super comfortable for day-to-day standing. For that day-to-day standing, it has elements of stability to it. So it's got sidewalls on it, which all three shoes have. So it has sidewalls in the heel to midfoot. Some of the bigger sidewalls are found in the Brooks, and that, if you think of like a bowling alley, it comes up along the side and just keeps your foot centered as you move throughout. It's got more elements of stability in the Brooks in terms of the sole flare, which means that the sole comes out slightly wider than when your foot sits in the shoe. Again, that gives you a bigger base of support, adding extra stability to the shoe. There's some features that give you more stability in the upper, which we'll talk about later. You've got, as I mentioned, sidewalls in the New Balance, so the fact that it doesn't have as much sidewalls and it's a super soft shoe, it can be a little bit more unstable. The firmness of the on Cloud gives it elements of stability, and it does have sidewalls, but it doesn't have that sole flare that you find in the Brooks, so perhaps not as stable of a shoe overall, but not as unstable as the New Balance. Then as we move up the shoe into the upper, all three shoes are super spacious in the toe box. I'd say the Brooks is probably wider on the heel and midfoot compared to the other two shoes, which are a little bit snug in that area, and then all three have loads of space in the toe box. The upper in the shoes in terms of the tongue is different throughout. So in the Ghost Max 2, it's non-gusseted and super padded, which means that it can move side to side, so it's not stitched in. On the 1080, it has a gusseted tongue, so it's stitched in and it's super padded. And then in contrast to the other two, you've got a super thin tongue that's gusseted on the Cloudmonster 2. Now we had some issues with that in terms of when you lock down the lace, you can feel extra pressure on the front of the ankle because it doesn't have that padding underneath. If that's something that you've had issues with in the past, it's something to keep in mind. Then as we move to the heel counter, all three have nice padding on the heel counter, nice and stiff in the heel counter on the Ghost Max 2 and on the New Balance, less stiff in the heel counter on the Cloudmonster 2. that is something that we're a little bit surprised by. Normally in a premium maximalist shoe, they try and provide stability by having a stiff heel counter. Not at all found here in the On Cloud. So if you find that your foot typically slips from side to side on top of a shoe, you might find that facilitated by the Cloudmonster 2, whereas the stiffness of the Brooks and the New Balance really keeps your foot nice and stable, combined with the other stability factors that we mentioned. So where do these three maximalist shoes sit overall? In terms of standing and walking, all three are excellent. If you have any history with tendon problems or instability, maybe be cautious with the New Balance. If you're looking for a shoe for smooth, long runs, then we'd recommend the Ghost Max 2. If you're looking for a maximalist shoe for up-tempo work, then we'd recommend the Cloudmonster 2. If you've got any questions on all three shoes, please leave them in the comment section below. If you're interested in more weekly reviews on different shoes, please like and subscribe to the channel.